Good morning, or depending when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and we're back with one of the games from the top 8 of the Masters trading card game Pokémon Championships in 2015. Now this features Michael Cornwall and his Fighting Bats deck that we have previously seen on the stream, and it features Coach Trip Oliver Fennelly and his Seismitoad Shaman deck, which was featured on the stream, but unfortunately the raw file was lost, so it hasn't come up on my YouTube channel. As always, I encourage you all to stick around. We have an interview with both the chaps at the end of this game. And just a warning that there will be references to the stream and stuff, because this was recorded as part of the UK National Championship stream that went out online on the day of Nationals. So bear that in mind when you're watching it. I'm also very happy to say that we have a special guest today. This was recorded on the day 2 of Nationals, which means there were more people with more free time. So we have got the lovely Nick Pierce helping us out here. So for the very first time on my YouTube channel, you get to hear me doing commentary with one of my good friends. So I hope you very much enjoy it. And again, stick around for the interview at the end. If this is the first video you're watching from the UK National stream, I should add that there are plenty of other videos. I recorded 6 rounds from the 8 before this, so I would encourage you all to check them out as well. Links in the description. Good morning, or depending on where the world you are, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We are back with the top 8 from UK National Championships, and we have an absolute doozy for you, and they've even sat in the right seat so I don't have to change their names over. On the left, we've got Michael Cornwall playing Fighting Bats, and on the right, we have Oliver Fennelly, who is going to be playing Seismitoad. Both these players were featured on the stream yesterday, so they should be moderately familiar. And in mixing things up today, I'm not doing this alone, which is why the sound quality will sound ever so slightly different. I'm joined by Nick Pierce. Morning, Nick.
Oh, morning, Ross. How are you doing?
Nick did, well, tell us about your Nationals yesterday, Nick. What happened?
Well, actually, it's funny. Michael Cornwall, I was the only person he lost to during the entire round of Swiss yesterday, so I played him. I ended up finishing 4-2-2, which just squeezed me into top 32, which gets me 30 points, which gets me my Worlds invite. So I'm super chuffed. Like, even if I missed out on top 8, I've got my Worlds invite now, so that's pretty good.
That is pretty darn impressive. Congratulations to you, sir. What did you play yesterday?
I played similar to Oliver. I played a Toad Shaman, but I wasn't playing because he's playing a 1/1 Slurpuff line, which we'll discuss later. I was playing just pure Speed Shaman. It was just, also playing a heavy support account to try and make the mirror a bit less rubbish because it's normally quite rubbish.
The mirror is. It was quite interesting yesterday because we talked to loads of people about Seismitoad, and everyone's going, "Oh, I'm teching for the mirror. I'm teching for the mirror."
Yeah.
And we had everything from extra Xerasic to a 1/1 Slurpuff line to extra supporters like yourself, and it's interesting to me because everyone's teching for the mirror, but nobody's teching for the mirror in the same way.
No, because there's a few different ways you can go about it. I think the ultimate mirror tech that I decided to opt for was, first of all, I decided not to play Headringer because I think that unless you're going second, in which case you probably just win the mirror anyway, because that's really a huge advantage. If you're going second, you get the first Quaking Punch, then it's not that great. So I ended up playing a second Flare Grunt because that's also really good in other matchups, just especially if you go against random Frisian Genesect, you can just keep Flare Grunting there active and stop them from ever Emerald Slashing. So it's I felt like that was just the best way to approach teching the mirror in the end.
I don't think that's a bad plan at all. Now, a couple of advantages with being in top 8. Firstly, we've had sleep, which is always a bonus. Mm-hmm. And secondly, we've actually got their deck list, something we weren't able to have yesterday. So rather than being trying to guess their counts, etc., we can actually tell you with quite some certainty today about their decks. So, you've had a good look through the decks, Nick. Have you seen anything in there which you find unusual or...
Well, yeah, I was actually looking through Oliver Fennelly's list and sort of interesting to compare it to my own. He's got, as we were discussing, the 1/1 Slurpuff line, which obviously the game's already started now as well, so he's got Michael just attaching a fighting and just doing a Juniper. But yeah, with Oliver Fennelly's list, he's got the 1/1 Slurpuff line, and he's only playing 3 Laser, which is apparently something I didn't even think about, but it's something that a lot of Toad players are starting to opt for now because of the fact that you can trump card lasers back in, and so you don't necessarily need the 4th all the time. And he's also... He's got the typical sort of supporter lineup. He's got the one of Lysander, AZ, Xerosic, Team Flare Grunt, the sort of cards you're seeing a lot of in Toad decks now. But he's also opting to play 1N and 1 Getsis, which isn't as common. Getsis means that if you go first in the mirror match, you actually have a chance of pulling out a decent win, because if you can Getsis them, you can just cut them off from a lot of their item draw, and so they have to actually open with a supporter or a shaman, or they're probably just going to lose.
I agree entirely. So we have started off. Michael won the flip here. Ollie did get an extra card or two from the mulligans. And Michael here, he's starting to set up his Landorus. Now, we saw Michael against the Trevenant yesterday, and we know that he's essentially got two attackers. He can use the Crobat to attack. He can do a bit of sniping. That's not really what he's going to be going for often. He's going to want the Zubats to do the extra damage with Golbat, the extra damage with Crobat, but he's basically got the Hawlucha and he's got the Landorus. The big advantage over the Trevenant deck we saw yesterday is that the Hawlucha can attack essentially anything in Ollie's deck, whereas yesterday it was only the Landorus that could go after the Trevenant.
Yeah, pretty much. When I was playing Michael yesterday, I noticed something. Basically, it comes down to super scoop up flips in the end, because Hawlucha is inherently a really strong attacker against Seismitoad or any sort of big EX, because you're just doing with one strong energy, one fighting stage or whatever, you're two-shotting pretty much any EX apart from Megas. And so in the end, yeah, it just came to scoop up flips. So if I could hit enough heads to heal off the Seismitoads and stop him from being able to pick off my Shamans and my Seismitoads, then I was probably going to win, and that's what ended up happening. But yeah, so depending on how well Ollie flips here, the damage from the Hawluchas may end up being too much with the Crobats to deal with, and that's the way Ollie loses this game essentially, and how Michael wins.
Indeed. Now we see Ollie playing a couple of trainers mail. I talked about this card a lot on the stream yesterday. It's a card that I underestimated. I think that's fair to say. He's got himself an Ultra Ball and a Crushing Hammer, so obviously the ideal here is he's going to want to get rid of the energy on that Landorus, and then he's going to want to use the Ultra Ball probably to get himself a Seismitoad, but maybe he'll go for a Shaman instead to start drawing more cards. And we see that he gets this there that you mentioned a minute ago. The interesting thing, of course, is although he's going second, so obviously he can attack now, he can get the Quaking Punch, he can get the Trainer Lock going. The interesting question is going to be whether he can get the Mewtwo out of the active. Because if he can't get the Mewtwo out of the active, it doesn't really matter getting a Seismitoad yet. You know, do we think it's a viable strategy here to just get a DCE on the Mewtwo and just go aggro against the Landorus, let Michael have his trainers, and just try and get rid of that Landorus as quickly as possible?
No, I don't think so at all, because if you just go for the play with the Seismitoad, and don't forget also Oliver is playing Scoop Up Cyclone rather, so he has another sort of guaranteed out, quote unquote, to get the Seismitoad active, and that Seismitoad will be hitting the Landorus a weakness. So yeah, sure, he wants to go to the Crushing Hammer, and he's going for that now. Is that a heads? Yes, it is.
It is a heads. That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And so if he can just whack this Landorus for no, there's Super Scoop Up. We see. No, that looks like it has
a Tails, unfortunately.
Yeah, but he just wants to mega focus on probably just going for these, and he's got the Shaman draw there. He 100% just wants to focus on going for the Seismitoad, because if he can just block off Michael from getting his repeat balls and all his other trainers so he can set up his Crobats, he is going to win this game, basically. In fact, Michael starting Landorus was really unfortunate for him, because obviously being weak to water, it's just very, very vulnerable to getting hit by Seismitoad, and that's what Oliver wants to be attacking with anyway to win. It's
going to be a very easy two-hit KO. I mean, assuming he gets a Muscle Band, which we've seen how consistent these decks are, we can probably rely on the fact he's going to get the Muscle Band. We see a Swirlix?
Yeah, that's the one.
Swirlix coming down there. That's going to turn into his 1/1 Slurpuff line, assuming it isn't prized.
Yeah.
But he's played an Ultra Ball, he searched his deck, so if it was prized, we don't think he'd probably be popping it down quite yet. No. So here, he's playing Chamber with a few more cards. Like you say, he's playing a Scoop Up Cyclone. That's his A-spec of choice. Seems to be for pretty much every Seismitoad deck. And when you see the power of these Scoop Up cards in terms of both healing and reusing a Shaman, you can understand why.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And also just the fact of switching out something active if they try to stall you with a Lysander to try and make you avoid a turn of Quaking Punch is just another way of, getting a dead thing out of the active and being able to Quaking Punch again.
I agree entirely. So he's actually got everything he needs. He could do with a Muscle Band, but even without the Muscle Band, it's a free hit KO. He can add in some lasers. But the other problem is, of course, that he's playing an N there, which is a card which we don't see in many. So how many Ns is he playing in this particular list?
He's only playing one right now, and to be honest, even that in and of itself is a little bit surprising, because he's normally, a lot of the Toad decks we've seen nowadays, really speed-focused ones, play 0 instead. So the fact he's playing 1, I guess just for that potential disruption late game, where it gets to that point where both people are low on a prize count, and both people have played all their Shamans. So you end up in a state where you can't just draw an Ultra Balls and out to fill up your hand again, and so it can actually be surprisingly good. But yeah, I guess we'll see how it plays out here. And it looks like he's going for another scoop up. He's sort of acrobated into 2, which is unfortunate.
But he hits it.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, it is unfortunate acrobating into 2 super scoop ups, especially when you really want one, because you've then forced into discarding one.
Yeah.
At least he hit heads, though.
Yeah, he did. Also, that was doubly lucky because he actually only plays 3 super scoop up, so that's all 3 of his already gone in one turn.
Which is very interesting. We haven't seen a scoop up Cyclone here, and obviously he's got trump card to try and put them all back, but we shall see how that all plays out. Now, the other downside here, I mean, if Ollie hadn't been able to get the Toad in the active, is we've got that Landorus. That Landorus is a very, very good attacker, because we've seen essentially Michael on previous games. That Horlucha is very, very good. When you can Lysandre up the Shaman and kill it, it's exceptionally good. Because when he's going after the Swirlix here, probably just to try and get an easy KO here. And you can see he's got 30 damage on that, 30 on the Shaman. The key here is that the Shaman's got 110 HP, and Horlucha's ability goes through the resistance that Shaman would otherwise have. So he needs to get the KO, he's going to need Strong Energy, Muscle Band, and Fighting Stadium. As soon as you get the 30 damage on the bench Shaman, it brings its HP down to 80, and then you need Fighting Stadium or Muscle Band or Strong Energy, and that in itself will be enough to get the KO. So just that 30 damage on the Shaman really makes it a lot more vulnerable to a Lysandre and a Horlucha play.
Is that 30 damage on it? I thought it would only be 20 because he dropped a goal back, didn't he?
Oh, he dropped a goal, but I apologise. I thought he'd done the hammerhead. So again, dropping on the Shaman, it still brings it down to 90. So we'll need 2 of the 3 damage multipliers.
It still makes it a lot easier for him to get that KO, and obviously that's really important there. And it looks okay.
Is it still recording? So, I mean, the other thing we saw there is, of course, that Michael was unable to get the fighting energy. We've actually lost the video for a minute, so we're going to do the best we can without seeing the game. Oh, we're back. Yeah. He missed a turn of attacking, which, especially when he's spreading damage around with a vulnerable Landorus, and we've already talked about how vulnerable he is, that's huge.
Yeah. And not only that, but because Oliver he did draw the DCE to retreat that Swirlix, then the stall tactic, unfortunately, did not pay off. But, of course, it's all you can do. That's when you're faced with a Quaking Punch. You just have to try and play all your outs to avoid getting Quaking Punch for another turn, so you have a turn of items again, so that you're live for another turn of setting up more easily.
Indeed. I mean, something which I find interesting, you've already mentioned that Ollie only plays 3 Super Scoop Up. And he's used all 3 Super Scoop Up. Now he's having a waste of DCE retreating the Swirlix, and he only plays 4 DCE. So without that Scoop Up Cyclone, having played 3 Super Scoop Up, he's now forced to waste a DCE, one of only 4, and we don't know if one might be prized. So he really doesn't want to be getting rid of too many energy, or is it going to matter here?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But, because, I mean, the fact that you can just trump card all the energy back, after all, is why a lot of these Toad decks are opting just to play 4 DC in the first place. I mean, before you wouldn't even think about doing that. We think about the very early size Toad decks pre-trump card, where you'd end up playing, 4 to 5 basic water energy as well. But now, how speedy they are, I think it ultimately just doesn't make a difference.
No, and I mean, the other thing is that Toad isn't going down. It's a minimum for Michael. The absolute best he can do is a 2-hit KO. Yeah. That's going to give Ollie time to draw into more DC, get more Toads down. One thing that Ollie is really missing at the moment, he doesn't have a second Toad on the bench. I should point out, of course, that with the Slurpuff in the active, that means he's drawing 2 cards with tasting rather than 1. Obviously, we saw this on the stream a lot yesterday. If you have a second Toad on the bench, that's when your Scoop Up Cyclone, etc., become a lot more meaningful, because you scoop up the active Toad, put the benched one up, attach a DC muscle band, and you're off and rolling. If you don't have a second Toad on the bench, you're forced to promote a Shaman or a Jirachi or something of that nature, which you've then got to get out of the active again in order to get the Toad rolling.
Yeah, which means you have to either get doubly lucky by hitting 2 super scoop up heads, or you need to draw one of your guaranteed outs, like your AZ or your super scoop up Cyclone even, or whatever it may be.
Indeed, Ultra Balling 2 Ultra Balls. We've all done that. It's kind of like acrobiking to draw an acrobike, or if anyone remembers a few formats ago, you always discarded a Sage's Training when you used a Sage's Training.
Yeah, it was always the way. I remember Sage training as well. That was fun times.
For anyone that doesn't, Sage's training was a supporter where you looked at the top 5 cards of your deck, you took 2 and discarded the other 3. It was quite an aggressive supporter card, and every time you played it, some weird statistical anomaly meant you had to discard a Sage's training.
It was just the way things were, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
That really sound like old men now, probably.
Now, the key for Ollie here, one brilliant thing is, he's got the head ringer on the Landorus. That means that Landorus needs 2 energy just in order to use Hammerhead, and now the trainer lock is finally starting, and not only does he need 2 energy to attack, it's got a retreat cost of 3, as in colourless, not 0. That means he can't attack, he can't switch or escape rope or float stone or super scoop up or any of that, and we know, I believe Michael... Does he play any super scoop up, Michael? I think I had a conversation about it that he doesn't trust them, so he doesn't play them.
He plays 1 scoop up cyclone, and that's it. He doesn't play any regular super scoop up, but he does play the cyclone, which makes sense because it can be an out to, switching again for, if you have something out in the active you don't want, you can use it to reuse bats as well. So I think it makes sense to play it as DA spec, and also just to reuse, because he plays 1 Jirachi and 1 Shaman, just to reuse those as well. It just seems like a good option all around.
He does play a single AZ, which he was unfortunately unable to get. And the real key in that last turn was that Landorus died of poison going into Ollie's turn. So Michael missed the attack, and then it goes straight to Ollie again. So Ollie's now up by 2 prizes. He's managed to take down the Landorus, and now he's got the first hit on the Golbat. Golbat, of course, has got 80 HP.
I think it's got 70 actually.
He's got 70 HP.
I'm fairly sure it does have 70, yeah. Because I remember I was playing against him yesterday, and it was what was it? Yeah, with Laser, it was enough to just get the KO with the muscle band as well. Well, actually, in that case, it doesn't make too much of a difference.
It makes no difference at all. Essentially, he needs, because Michael's got free retreat on the Golbat. The key here is that he needs to. If Ollie's able to get a Verbank Laser, he's got the 1-hit kill on that Golbat. He's now 3 prizes up, and that's going to. It's going to put him in a very, very good position going forward. One of the problems of being under train lock is, especially with something like Horlucha, if Michael can draw into his energy, and if Michael can keep attacking turn on turn, and if Ollie misses his super scoop ups, huge amounts of ifs and buts in that sentence, he's going to be fine. But you see here, Michael under trainer lock, it's not as good as... It's all well and good saying, I can attack with Horlucha for a single energy. You need to draw into those energy. And when you're under train lock, it can be very difficult to do. And it's clearly something with which Michael is struggling at the moment.
I have a sort of amusing side note anecdote about Super Scoop Up in particular. I've been informed that the reason why Michael doesn't play Super Scoop Up is because in one of his top cut final games ages ago in the senior division against Jack Stewart Armstead, he played 4 Super Scoop Ups, including one with a Junk Arm, and he needed just 1 head to win. That was it. It was the final, I was informed, and he missed all of them, and that's why he doesn't play Super Scoop Up.
4 tails in a row to cost you a Nationals final would make me distrust Super Scoop Up.
Yeah, so that's why he plays Scoop Up Cyclone. Just can't trust the flips, and I don't blame him at all.
And just like that, the first game is over. Michael appears to, like we suggested, he had nothing. He didn't have his energy. And I like that he scooped here. We're not very far into the game. We're maybe about...
Sorry, Ollie. Yeah, Ollie wins, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I meant Ollie.
Yeah.
Michael had nothing, and he was never going to do much. Ollie had a good start. I like that Michael scooped, because we're about 10 minutes into the game. I didn't actually record something. It's about 10 minutes. Now, we're playing our best of 3, if I remember correctly.
That's the normal time for top cut, yeah. And I completely agree with you on the decision as well, because Michael obviously recognised that he was too far behind then, so there's no point carrying on. Just save the time. Go to game 2, just focus on the next match. It's a completely sensible thing to do.
He's essentially got 50 minutes to try and win. And remember, the top cut rules, we now go to the 50% of prizes. So if Michael can win game 1 and then, game 2, and then take 50% of his prizes, i.e., over 50, 4, 5 or 6, in game 3, then that game will count and he will win. Although actually we've got the when you're ahead on prizes. So if Michael just win game 2 and be ahead when time is called in game 3, unlike in Swiss where if the game doesn't finish for whatever reason, no matter what the game state, it doesn't count. In Top Cut, if you get to game 3 and time runs out, whoever's ahead wins. Michael needs enough time to win a legitimate game 2 and then get into game 3. And as we've seen, some of these games against Toad can go very, very long.
Yes, they can, because it's just one of those decks that can sort of take a sort of exaggerating a little bit hour-long turn, just going through half of your deck in one turn with Shamans, just to get everything set up in one quick fell swoop. It's I'm not sure what you think about this, Ross, in terms of like going first or second. But if you're Michael here, I think you probably I assume you probably just go first, because the whole idea is that you want to, even if it means you get damage for the first, because obviously the Oliver can do the Quaking Punch from his turn 1. You just want to get all the bats down so you can evolve as quickly as possible. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. In a general Landorus deck, there would be an argument for going second so that you can get a quick
Hammerhead.
Hammerhead, there we go. You can get a Hammerhead off before your opponent starts Quaking Punching. But the other downside if he was to go second is, if he starts with a Landorus, Ollie can go laser. Although if you go second, Ollie can play the laser, and you've got a guaranteed turn to get out of the laser. You've got at least one turn with trainers, so you can try and get out of the laser. If Ollie were to go first here and laser the Shaman, Michael could just get the Shaman onto the bench, use his scoop up Cyclone or a switch or whatever, get back to the bench, and then he'd go with Landorus, and Ollie would be one laser down. We know he only plays 3, so he could almost kind of bait Ollie into wasting a laser. But I absolutely agree with you. All other arguments about going first, going second are completely irrelevant when you're playing a bats deck. You've got to get your bats down, and the quicker you get them down, the quicker you can evolve them, the quicker you can add that damage on with the bats. So yeah, I think without the bats, there is an argument for Michael going second. Make Ollie waste a laser before the trainer lock started, get the Hammerhead off before the Quaking Punch. But all that's irrelevant because of the bats.
Yeah. And it looks like not only that, Michael's actually had a pretty decent start here. He's got 2 Horluchas. He started Shaman, which is like I'd argue not nowhere near as bad as starting Landorus, especially if he hits a scoop up Cyclone here. He can just pick up the Shaman and use it later, or if he just hits an AZ at some point in the game, he can just really use it then. He's got 2 bats as well. If he has does he have a repeat ball in his hand? I don't think he does. But
he does play repeat ball. I don't know if he's actually in it. He does play free. And this is an Oh, I like this play here. Now, he's wasted an energy to retreat the Shaman, and he's put the Zubat up. Now, that Zubat's going to die. Yeah. Because all it's going to take is Zubat's only got 40 HP. I did check, by the way. Nick was right. Golbat does have 70, not 80. It was irrelevant, but I like to be pedantic. So, a Quaking Punch with a laser, no Verbank, or with a Muscle Band will get the KO here. And it looks like he's played a Trainer's Mail and got the Muscle Band straight away. So DC kills that Zubat. But what it means for Michael is he gets to take the initiative. He's got to give up a prize, but he can then go into a Hawlucha, or he can go into a Landorus, which, as we've discussed, is probably a bad idea. Whereas if he were to put the Hawlucha up, Hawlucha, and this one definitely does have 70 HP, Hawlucha dies to just Muscle Band, Laser, Verbank, and we've seen how fast these Shaman decks, Seismitoad decks are. We've seen how quickly he can set up here. So you really don't want to lose a Hawlucha. You don't want to lose a Zubat.
No.
But, if it comes down to it, if you've got to lose one of them, you'd rather lose the Zubat.
And also, it's I guess you make the assumption of, well, I guess there's 2 different ways you could look at it. You could look at it from the perspective of, sure, he's likely to hit the Muscle Band, Laser, Verbank, DC to KO Hawlucha, but that's less likely, and I make him waste more resources. But from the other perspective, you could just as easily say, okay, so if that's going to happen anyway, why don't I just promote a bat so that I have a Hawlucha ready and going to attack with, and then that way, because Hawlucha is going to be doing more damage in the long run, it's just an easier thing to go about doing. And we see we've got Oliver Ultra Balling for Swirlix right now. I would say that Ross has briefly left the room, so it'll be left for me on my own just for a little bit. It's good getting rid of a Crushing Hammer. That's another nice thing about actually attaching the energy to the Shaman and just retreating, is that it gives Oliver more dead cards, which means that you can't thin out his hand as much with Shaman, and it leaves him in a position where, say, if he has these dead Crushing Hammers and he can't have an Ultra Ball to discard them, then his Shaman draws won't be anywhere near as meaningful. But yeah, at this point, he's played a Juniper and he's going to train his Mail. He's got a Lysander from that, so that'll obviously come in handy later on.
Indeed. I mean, Ollie wants to get rid of those Hawlucha. The Landorus isn't a threat to him, really. Yeah, the Landorus can pile on a bit of damage and do some bench damage, and we've seen, a little bit of bench damage on the Shaman does make a big difference. But when it really comes down to it, the Hawlucha is going to be what's taking the prizes, and that's what Ollie needs to KO. Now, Ollie's going to need to be very careful about his use of lasers here, because if Ollie can save his lasers for the Hawlucha, it's just a muscle-banded Quaking Punch with a Laser Verbank, and we know that Michael plays Fighting Stadium, so it's a bit of a combo to get, but we've seen Ollie's deck is fast, it's consistent. Michael's playing an N there, obviously he's going to be playing more N than your average Seismitoad deck. So Ollie can one-hit KO the Hawlucha, but what he needs to do is save those lasers for the situation where he can KO the Hawlucha. He doesn't want to play the lasers on, just a random Shaman or whatever. No, the Shaman's no threat to him. The threat to him is the Hawlucha, and Ollie needs to save it for the one-hit KOs. Yeah. If Michael can stream Hawluchas, all it's going to take is Ollie to miss a scoop up or two, and he can get in real trouble.
Yeah.
If Ollie can get rid of those Hawluchas on a consistent basis, Michael's not going to win the game with Landorus. He's not going to win the game with the bats. It's only the Hawlucha which is really going to win him this game. Yeah.
And I go back to a sort of small anecdote from when I played against Michael, was that in Game 2 especially, Game 1 went out for quite a bit. It was really super close in the end, but I managed to pull it out. But Game 2, the main reason why he lost was because he was forced to start with Landorus, and it just wasn't doing anything for him, because I could just Quaking Punch it, hit for weakness, and it's just essentially irrelevant. And because of that, I think Michael's really glad he hasn't been forced to play the Landorus here, because he can just go aggro Hawlucha, which is exactly what he wants to do to win. We do see now that Ollie's got a laser from the Trainer's Mail, one of the 3 he plays. That's another reason why I actually really agree with you when you said that he's got to be careful about using the lasers, because he only plays 3. It's not as if he can just dig for a 4th constantly just to try and get the Hawlucha KOs consistently. He needs to trump card essentially a turn earlier to try and flip a coin properly. Come on, Oliver. There we go. To get these KOs on the Hawluchas. So yeah, he's got a Shaman now. He's basically just digging for a Verbank at this point.
He is, and I'm trying to decide if I like his Crushing Hammer flip or not, because if he gets the Verbank, he's got the KO. Now, if he doesn't get the Verbank, then that Hawlucha will die of poison coming into his turn, except it clearly won't, because Michael's just going to retreat it to a different Hawlucha.
Yeah.
So, the Crushing Hammer flip is good. It stops that Hawlucha essentially getting the KO next turn. Because with the damage from the Golbat earlier, Seismitoad's on 100 already, so he's only got 80 HP left, so he would need a Fighting Stadium energy or just a Strong energy, i.e., had the Strong energy stayed on the Hawlucha, Michael would have been able to get the KO. So you kind of hate seeing somebody play a Crushing Hammer in a situation where if they draw a Verbank, it's a wasted hammer. But as we've seen, he can't be sure. He only plays 2 Verbank, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
We can't be sure he's going to get the Verbank, so although it makes me sad to see someone play a hammer which might end up being irrelevant, he had no choice but to actually do it. It just makes me a little bit sad.
I honestly think the only reason he played the hammer was to thin his hand out to draw more of Shaman.
Absolutely. I think he'd play it anyway, just because that Hawlucha, he's got the opportunity to get the KO. Oh, he's got the KO anyway. He retreats the Hawlucha, which now only has 10 HP left, brings up the Fighting Energy, a second Hawlucha with Fighting Energy, KOs the Toad. And now we're seeing Michael do what we suggested is essentially his only route to victory. Ollie didn't have a Super Scoop Up. He hasn't played a trump card yet this game, has he?
No, he hasn't.
And he's played the Scoop Up Cyclone?
I don't think he's played Scoop Up Cyclone.
He hasn't played
yet.
Scoop Up Cyclone, but he's played all of his Super Scoop Ups.
Something I did just notice, last turn he acrobiked, right? And he discarded one more of his lasers. So I'm fairly sure, unless I'm not sure if he's played all 3 already, but there's at least 2 gone. And because he only plays 3, he's going to be digging very hard for this last one now. And he's got to get the Verbank as well. It's actually quite a big ask, to be honest.
We're now flicking into the territory where Michael, we know he's 1 prize up, but the prize count is going to sound silly. The prize count isn't terribly relevant here. It's about kind of the flow of the game.
Yeah.
If Michael if Michael gets down to 2 prizes and then is out of Hawlucha and Strong Energy, and Ollie's set up with his Seismitoad and healing, it really doesn't matter the prize count. But what we see here is a situation where Ollie needs that trump card, and he needs it very, very fast. He's out of Super Scoop Ups. He's got maybe 1 laser remaining. And this is where... Now, we talked to him yesterday on the just on the sofa after the... And I do mean a genuine sofa. After the game...
It's true.
It's not just kind of like trying to be cool. We're literally on a sofa. It's so much more comfortable. And he told us about the 1-1 Slurpuff line, and it does add that consistency, especially in the mirror when you're trainer locked, have a handful of trainers and Shaman becomes near useless. Mm-hmm. But he's playing 3 Super Scoop Up, they're gone, 3 laser, 2 of them are gone. And he needs to KO that Hawlucha. If he doesn't KO the Hawlucha, and it's going to take a laser and a Verbank, and there comes the enhanced time to get rid of the strong energy.
That's a bit of a help then, at least. It means that Michael needs at least to earn out to an energy, which he probably has. I mean, given that, well, you can't see the rest of his hand right now. He's got
an Ultra Ball, a Zubat, and
another Hawlucha, it looks like.
Yeah, so he's actually this good. So again, even though he's gone up, it's still it's dodgy.
This is potentially a bit of a misplay, but depending on what else was in Oliver's hand, I'd have quite liked to see him play the Crushing Hammer before the Enhanced, for the potential to thin the hand out more, to draw more with Shaman. I'm not sure if there are more Shamans in a discard pile or whatever else, but because then if he gets the Tails and the Crushing, he could then play the Enhanced as well and draw more with Shaman to have an extra, more likely to be able to draw the Verbank Laser combo.
I agree with you entirely. It goes back to something I've been trying to talk about more on my YouTube channel. Search PTCGRadio on YouTube. I had to. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Something I've been talking about recently is just kind of the order in which you play cards. And Nick makes an excellent point there. If he's just going to end up discarding it anyway, it might be worth trying to play both the cards, just because, then you can, best case scenario, you end up using 2 cards where one would do, and then drawing an extra card with the Shaman. Although it would depend on what else he had in his hand to use with the computer search.
Yeah, that's very true. That's sort of my addendum to that point.
So we have another strong energy. Michael really gets 3 strong energy in 3 turns. And you'll notice from that last Acro Bike, Ollie got rid of a Crushing Hammer. And now the interesting thing is going to be whether Ollie's trump card is prized. He hasn't played it yet. It's not in a discard, or at least I don't believe it's in a discard.
I haven't seen it, and he does only play 1 as well, so it's not that he has the crutch on relying on a second one to make it less likely to be prized. If it's prized, then he's kind of in a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, I mean, if it's prized, Ollie needs to basically scoop
Scoop up Cyclone, because we're not sure if he's actually used it yet. I don't think I've seen it, but
I mean, the way I'm basically thinking about it is, the way I see it, we're like 25 minutes into the game. Ollie, from what we've seen, is the heavy favourite here. What he doesn't want to do, but Michael's deck, it can take early prizes, you see here. Even though if this game goes to completion, Ollie gets a trump card, I still think Ollie's in the best position. Ollie's down by a prize. What we do, we see a Team Flagrant coming to get rid of that next energy.
And there it is. There it is. That is huge. That is absolutely massive. That has turned this game around almost. That's wow.
It's going to be difficult for Michael to get enough energy and get the KOs rolling. But then Ollie's 2-hit KOing these Hawlucha at the moment. If Michael can keep energy being streamed, it's all going to come down to the next couple turns.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think Ollie should be scooping yet, but I do think he needs to be seriously considering it if that trump card is prized. And you think by now he'd know if it was prized or not. He has searched his deck. So, here's another Super Scoop up there.
In his hand?
He's got a Super Scoop up in his hand.
Oh. He does play 3, I'm fairly sure, unless
There are only 3 in his deck, unless we miss something.
Yeah.
But it does appear he's got a Super Scoop up in his hand, unless I missaw what he drew into there. Which is interesting. I thought he played 3. Definitely says 3 on his deck list. We shall see. Now here we've seen Lysandra. It's bringing up the Hawlucha. He's going to get a KO here. Yeah. And now it's just all turning back. And the big difference there was Michael missed an attack and Ollie got the scoop up Cyclone, which means it's going, and this looks like, unless Ollie decks out, now we're looking like it's not going to be a terribly long game.
Yeah, because Michael's just not drawing energy or supporters, and that's what he needs right now. That's the way he wins the game, just by being able to attack constantly. But it seems like the constant energy discard outs that Ollie's able to hit has really turned the game around.
Well, you also got to think about the maths here. I mean, your average Hawlucha does 60 damage, just without doing anything else. There's another Lysandra on another Hawlucha.
Yeah, he just VS-Secret for it, and there's another KO right there, so
talking about the Hawlucha, you don't want to be free hit KOing a Seismitoad. Then they're definitely going to hit the scoops and all of that.
Yeah.
Now,
another draw pass from Michael as well.
This is not looking very good. He'd need the Fighting Stadium, but even then you're only talking 2-hit KO. He'd need the Fighting Stadium, and he'd need to get the Crobat to put the energy down with an energy just to get the damage down from the Crobat, I meant to say. The end could do something here, but again, Michael taking those early 2 prizes might hurt him here, because he's going to 4 and Ollie's going to 3, and remember, Ollie's got that Slurpluff down, so they're essentially both going to 4.
Not only that, but I think that means that Ollie's less likely to deck out now. Do you notice he was not using Slurpuff those past few turns?
I think there is a definite chance a trump card is prized, but I don't know for how much longer Michael was going to be able to just sit there, and Ollie's taking prizes every turn. Michael's got nothing with which he can stall. The closer, the beefiest Pokemon he's got there is a Shaman, which has an effective HP of 50 or 55 or 60 per prize. So, yeah. Now, he does get his 4th strong energy here.
That's pretty big.
But he still needs a Fighting Stadium or the Crobat just to turn it into a 2-hit KO. Now we will be able to see whoever Ollie did have a Super Scoop up. And we see an Acrobike there, so he's clearly not fearing to deck out too much.
No, maybe not anymore now that he's been in. What's that?
He's got rid of the Burbank City Gym. I think he knows he's not going to hit a laser. Although actually he had the Scoop up in hand, but of course we saw him get end, so it might be that he played that Acrobike because he's desperate for the Scoop up. Michael could nick a couple prizes here. Ollie's gone through several hammers, enhanced hammers, he's played his Team Flare Grunt, and it might be that Ollie doesn't have, and if Ollie doesn't have a way to get rid of the energy, and if Ollie doesn't have the lasers to get the 1-hit KO on the Hawlucha, now we might be seeing it go right back into Michael's favour. The one thing which worries me here is Michael essentially, his last 2 prizes he needs to kill a Shaman. Fair enough. In order to kill a Shaman, without using any bats, you need to hit the Strong Energy and the Fighting Stadium and the Muscle Band.
Yeah, you hit all 3 together.
We know he's not going to get the Muscle Band because he's trained a lot. He did have another Scoop up,
yeah.
and it's a tail? No, it is a heads. Is it?
No.
Is that a 5 or a 4?
It's tails.
It is a tails. He did hit a tails on that. We're on a very small screen here, I should add. Yeah. So, I don't see how he needs to Lysandre up and kill the Shaman. I don't see how he's going to kill it.
Is that what we just said, or is it?
Oh, he's chosen. And it was a heads.
No.
But he's chosen to go for the Shaman there. Interestingly enough, he can afford to give up a couple of prizes.
There's a trump card.
So he did have the trump card in the. He didn't put it to the side like a lot of players do.
Yeah.
So he's got the trump card here. This is going to be huge, but it's also going to put the strong energy back into Michael's deck. The key here is really going to be whether if Michael can carry that Seismitoad next turn, then he's going to be able to get, and he's going to need a Fighting Stadium to do it. Essentially, his route to victory is get the Fighting Stadium to KO the Seismitoad this turn. Then next turn he'll need the Lysandre and he'll need the Crobat, because if he's just got an energy in a Fighting Stadium and he can use the Crobat to bring Shaman's HP down to 80, then he can get the KO with the Hawlucha. Or indeed, he could just get not the Fighting Stadium, but he would be able to, for instance, just do it with a strong energy instead.
We just see a Headringer on the Shaman, probably just fitting his hand out as a Verbank as well, and it's going to be a Shaman for a setup for 5 or 4, can't quite tell.
He's clearly going for the laser here.
Yeah.
We see the Verbank City Gym coming down, and that's why he scooped up the Shaman, because he knew he was going to play Lysandre. And there goes a Trainer's Mail, a very effective card that I keep saying I underrate. I'm going to stop saying it soon. And he uses Trainer's Mail for an Acrobike so he can draw another card. He knows if he can draw that laser, he's got the 1-hit KO on the Hawlucha, and Michael is going to be really hard-pressed to KO the Toad next turn, because he still needs to do 100 to that Toad. So he's going to need a strong energy and a Fighting Stadium. He can't get the 1-hit KO on the Shaman under Trainer Lock, so he needs the Crobat to hit the Shaman. Although he could still just go for instance Fighting Stadium. Oh, but Michael has got a Zubat down, so, and I don't think it's going to make a huge difference here.
No. The problem that Michael has is that even if he gets the energy and revenge knockouts, this Seismitoad hitting all the stuff he needs, that Hawlucha is so close to dying. And there's a super scoop up Psycho anyway. I think this game's just over. Honestly, I think that scoop up Cyclone has really just sealed it at this point.
I agree entirely, and at this stage, I think Ollie's probably, especially with all of Michael's problems, I wouldn't be surprised to just see a Lysandre on a Shaman, because if he's got a laser, remember the math works out perfectly. You do 50 damage to the Shaman, 30 with laser brings it up to 80, and then it dies of poison coming back into your turn.
Yeah, that was just an absolutely huge turn for Oliver, having the Verbank laser muscle bands KO the fresh Hawlucha, and having being able to have access to the trump card and hitting the scoop up Cyclone as well. I think Ollie couldn't have asked for a better turn in all honesty. Don't
think he could. No, I'm assuming an N here from the Drudge. No, a Chorus. The problem with N is, and he's got the Slurpuff down, Ollie's got the Slurpuff down, so whatever you N him to, he's going to draw out of it much more easily by virtue of having that Slurpuff down.
And even if he doesn't, what does Oliver even need right now? The Hawlucha's going to get KO'd by a Quaking Punch next turn anyway. If Michael just stalls by bringing something else out, the only thing that could take a hit is a Shaman, and if that gets two hit, all that Michael really needs, all that Oliver really needs rather, is a laser, and then the game's over. It's just. It just seems like Michael's not in the best position right now.
He needs a Lysandra. That's what he needs, essentially. Michael here, you can see him changing tack. He's going after the Shaman, and I think the only way he wins this is 2 quick KOs on bench Shaman. Yeah. But I honestly don't even really see a particular route to victory here. Now, Crobat, for anyone that's forgotten, has got Skill Dive, which does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench, so he can continue to go after that Shaman.
You can do it to the active as well as any Pokemon.
Oh, yeah, sorry, any Pokemon. But obviously, I meant he was going to do it to the bench.
Yeah, obviously, because he's going after that Shaman.
So, if he were able to hit a Crobat next turn, then he's actually going to be able to use the damage from the Crobat, and that's going to allow him to KO that Shaman. He's going to go down to 2 prizes. But even if he goes down to 2 prizes, I don't really see the point. I mean, obviously the point is that you're 2 prizes closer to winning, but where are his last 2 prizes coming from? I just don't see the victory here. That Hawlucha isn't getting a KO because he can't get the muscle band down. The Hawlucha's not getting a KO without some help from bats. But he needs to use the bat to KO the Shaman, unless I suppose he can skill dive the Shaman next turn.
Yeah, but he just doesn't have that many outs to winning, because it's like you're just saying. I mean, all he could do is target down these Shamans, and he just needs to rely on manually drawing his Lysander, which he does run free Lysander, to be fair, so that is an option you can go by. But he has to either be really lucky and manually top deck it each time, or play a Juniper and then Lysander and then Juniper and Lysander again. See, Michael's having a quick look for his discard power right now. How much damage is the Crobat on right now? Because it's kind of hard to see.
Crobat's on 50 from 1 Quaking Punch without a laser.
Yeah.
So a Quaking Punch with a laser Verbank will get the KO. He's got 130 HP, so the Verbank laser would do the 80 to finish him off here. Now, there is a route for winning for Michael here, but it's a long shot. He needs to not lose his Crobat here. He needs to skill dive to KO the bench Shaman next turn.
Yeah, after doing a Crobat drop to put it on to 90, and then you can just do it.
Is he not on 90 now?
I'm fairly sure. Oh, maybe
it's on 80.
Oh, okay.
So he would be able to skill dive the Shaman to get the KO. Yeah. He would then need to, because he can't use the Crobat to kill the bench Shaman, he would then need to use the Crobat to bring a bench Shaman down to 80, so that he could then KO it with a Hawlucha, using either Fighting Stadium or Strong Energy. So he would need the Golbat to stay alive, skill dive next turn. He would then need to draw into he would need to have a Crobat, and a Lysandra, and a Fighting Stadium, and it's all irrelevant because the Crobat's going down.
Yeah, Verbank laser, that's it. I'm fairly sure that Michael, well, obviously you don't concede because it's top 8, there's no reason to concede at this point, but I mean, what can Michael even do to win this game? I just don't see a single app for him to win at this point.
I honestly don't think there's anything Michael can do to win. He had that long shot of skill dive the Shaman, hope Ollie doesn't Lysandra something like a Jirachi or a Shaman and manage to kill that with residual poison if Michael can't get it out of the active, and then play Lysandra to kill the bench Shaman with the help of the Crobat. And he needed a lot of cards to pull that off. I don't think it was going to happen. Ollie here is down to 1 prize, so that Golbat, I mean, if he doesn't evolve it, it's just going to be a laser, and he's got the win. So it's really not looking very rosy for Michael here at all.
No, I guess, and even if Oliver, I was going to say, I guess Oliver could whiff the laser here, but even if he does, he's already been through 2, so chances are he could end up whiffing 1, and unless I'm mistaken again, I'm fairly sure I saw him acrobike discarding 1 and playing another one, so I think he'd have to trump card before lasering anyway. But even so, or actually, because we have the bench Hawlucha as well.
Yeah, so if he's got a Lysandra, he can just pull up the Hawlucha and kill that for the final prize anyway. When we went into this game, we did see Ollie as the favourite. It seemed like if everything went evenly, the win was going to go for Ollie, and it does seem like, and like you said yourself, Michael's 1 game down in top 8. There's no point conceding. You might as well just play it out because you've got literally nothing to lose from playing it out.
What could happen is Oliver could play all the 5 super scoop ups and a scoop up Cyclone and scoop up all of his Pokemon. I think that's how Michael wins right now. But
that would be a win for Michael, but I don't see it happening. Although it begins, and that's just kind of mean, to be honest with you.
No. He really just doesn't even need it at this point. But no, he's just going for the win because obviously you just you want to draw those cards of Shaman and then just get it over and done with. Hit the Lysander
or VS Seeker.
Yeah, or VS Seeker.
And it's going to be. Oh, he doesn't seem to have it yet. Yeah. Trainer's Mail, and this card is just—it keeps coming up and it keeps being super useful. I can't believe how good this card is. Now, I must confess, I haven't tested much with Trainers Mail because I wasn't playing at Nationals this year. But seeing, I thought in some decks, when you're going speed decks, I thought, one or two just to help thin the deck is good. But essentially, in any deck which relies on trainers to any real degree, you play 4 of them. And, I was talking to somebody yesterday about, and actually a top 8 player from this tournament. He played Groudon with Steven's Advice. The theory being that when you play against Seismitoad, you use Steven's Advice to get a Fighting Energy and a Steven's Advice, and it means you can draw a basic fighting every turn.
Sorry, I just want to interject there. Steven's Advice was a really good old card that was broken. They let you draw loads. Like, the new card is just called Steven.
Oh, it's Steven, isn't it?
If we actually had Steven's Advice now, that would be amazing. But sorry,
I thank you for the correction there. Playing it with Steven. So, and even Trainer's Mail there, it helps you get that Steven. Now, Team Flagrant has come down and got rid of the energy. We could see Lysandra from Michael, Ollie drawing dead turn after turn, and Michael just doing 10 damage to all of the bench.
Yeah, well, what's the Golbat's attack? Is it Skill Dive
Golbat's attack does 10 damage to all of your opponent's Pokemon.
Yeah, they're all called Skill Dive, aren't they? The ones with the Zubat, the Golbat, and the Crobat, but they all do slightly different things. That's what I remember.
Yeah, Zubat does 10 to any Pokemon, Crobat does 30 to any, and Golbat does 10 to all of them.
Yeah.
Oh no, we saw that, so he has gone for the Crobat here. Which is, it was not a valid strategy to try and 18 hit KO Ollie's entire bench.
No, it really wasn't. So yeah, I'm glad he's done that. But we will see. He goes for a skill dive on the active Seismitoad, and yeah, again now Ollie's really just digging for that Lysander. So if he hasn't any out to drawing more cards, maybe he has a Slurpuff. He's got a Crushing Hammer. Maybe a Super Scoop Up or a Cyclone to just pick up the Shaman again. There's just so many ways of Oliver stealing up this game at this point. It just seems like it's so close yet so far.
Indeed, it seems an inevitability. Like I say, as soon as he hits a Lysandra, the game's over. If he hits a laser, although we don't know how many he's got left, he might have 0 left. Then it's going to be game. Or if he just attacks a couple of times. Michael's not killing anything. If Ollie just keeps attacking, Michael's going to run out of blockers.
Yeah. Also, what I do like here about Ollie's play is that even though he essentially has got the game sealed up, notice how he's not being complacent at all. He's, he's got the... He's just looking for everything very carefully. He's actually... VS Seeker isn't an out because I don't think after the Trump card he's put his Lysander back in the discard pile again. So that's why he just VS Seeker for the Team Flagrant there.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he does have a Lysandra in the discard, that was a bit of a silly play.
Yeah.
But presumably he doesn't have it in the discard.
Yeah.
So, but again, that Crobat dies from one more hit. The Hawlucha dies from one more hit. The Jirachi and Shaman can take... the Shaman, I suppose, can take 3 without a laser. But it's just... Michael's going to run out of stuff sooner or later. And it wouldn't be so... If Michael was making Ollie waste so many attacks while doing a bunch of damage and taking a bunch of prizes. Now, maybe that's not what's happening. We can look at the Seismitoad here. It's got 110 HP left. It's on 70 damage. Fair enough. That Hawlucha's currently doing 80. Even a Fighting Stadium puts it on 100. That's the most damage you can add here. That ain't getting a KO.
No, it's not. Although... There's something that's sort of weird telling me that, I don't know, so Michael's it's not going to be a KO on this Seismitoad here, but depending on what, I was just thinking if Michael could win by just taking 2 KOs on Seismitoads, but no, the thing is if he KOs 1, he's going to take 50 now, and then if he attacks, that's going to go to 50, and then, Oliver can just bring up the Seismitoad on the bench and finish it off, so no, that's not a viable strategy either. He needs another fresh Hawlucha, essentially.
Yeah, and even then he's not got big enough Pokemon to survive for long enough to attack enough times to win if Ollie misses his Super Scoop Ups.
Yeah.
If he hits some Super Scoop Up Cyclones, etc., then all of that becomes irrelevant. Now, I suppose Michael could draw into his AZ, and that would give him a fresh Hawlucha, but...
AZ, he plays... Yeah, okay, he only plays 1. I was thinking of a different list that played 3. Okay, so he could draw his 1 of AZ, that would be his other outs.
But it's not really an out. I don't think we can give... And again, Michael's a lovely chap. We'll get him in to have a chat afterwards. But it's not going to be an out to winning the game. It's going to be an out to having an extra turn or 2.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's really not... He's not doing himself any good here. Because... I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean it in a kind of... and there comes the Team Flagrant VS Seeker for last turn.
Yeah, and again, I think that's absolutely fine from Ollie because it just means that he's just doing what he can with what he's given, and he's just going to hit this Hawlucha, and now Michael physically cannot attack with this Holucha, which is just a huge option to take away, because obviously you're going to be a chorus there for 9. Yeah, I'm fairly sure if he doesn't draw a Holucha off of this, he just loses. Well, he has to promote one of the EXs essentially, at which point he's not attacking at all. So,
and he's not going to be able to get it out of the active under trainer lock except by attaching an energy and retreating. And if you have to attach an energy to retreat, you can't attach an energy to attack. So, yeah, anything. He could go Landorus here.
Yeah, that is an option. He also drew another Holucha, so I'm not sure. Like, yeah, you make an argument for either one. It's funny because with the muscle band, actually, they both get 2-shot. So, well, the only problem with Landorus is that well, I guess with Landorus, what you can do is like hit stuff on the bench, so that may be the better option to go for. But yeah, because of the weakness that Landorus has to water, they sort of both they're both within the same range of getting KO'd by a Seismitoad.
Yeah, it essentially brings him down to a 2-hit KO, same as a Jirachi or a Shaman.
Yeah, but it does look like that's what he's going for here.
But he has no energy.
Oh, that's.
I'm pretty sure we had a good look at his hand a second ago. I'm fairly sure he's got no energy. So
yeah,
this isn't actually going to do him any good. He's just going to get 2-hit KO'd, and that Landorus is not coming out of the active.
No.
It's going to die before he's attached enough energy to manually retreat it. He's trainer locked. I could play his AZ, I suppose. That's the only way that Landorus is ever coming out of the active, is from an AZ.
Yeah. Is Ollie's about to attach another Headringer? No, he's about to play. Debating playing something. Yeah, he's playing a Headringer, and I think there's no reason to not play it. Like just get it out.
And there's a Juniper. He's going to draw a bunch of cards off. There's 7, in fact.
Yeah.
And he may well draw a Lysandre off this, which will be.
Which means that if Michael doesn't have M, then he just loses the game. So.
Well, we can't see his hand well enough. I look like there might be one in there, but we're seeing that. Yeah, we're not seeing a very clear view here.
Yeah. See, if Oliver was to play full art Lysander, I know we'd be able to see that a lot more easily, of course. But we can't blame it when some cards end up getting so expensive. You don't want to play max priority everything just to have it get bent during play or whatever. So it's understandable. Oh, and there's a concession for Michael.
Yeah.
He's obviously just nothing he can do.
There's nothing he can do there. Ollie gets a win. He goes up to 2-0, and Ollie is going to win and go on to the top 4 of UK Nationals.
Yeah.
To play, well, we don't know actually because the other games haven't finished yet. So I'm going to say thank you to Nick. We're going to have to kick him out now in a terribly rude gesture so that we can get both of these chaps in to have a chat and have a quick talk about their game.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me, Ross. It's been a pleasure commentating with you. If I may quickly plug my own YouTube, seeing as you did it for yours as well. I am Xanadu TCG on YouTube. So I'm not sure if it's XATANATU. TCG. So look it up. I do videos on Pokemon and stuff every now and then. So yeah, just have a look at that. That'd be great. And again, thank you very much for having me on.
It was a pleasure to have you, sir. And we're going to pause you just for a second here, ladies and gentlemen. But if you just hold on, we're going to be back with interviews with these lovely people very shortly. Okay, so my apologies that we haven't got a camera set up in this room, but I assure you we are joined on the sofa by Oliver Fennelly and Michael Cornwall. Got your name right that time. Always a bonus. After their top 8 games. So, Ollie, congratulations, and Michael, commiserations. So, we'll start with you, Michael. Your deck, we talked about your deck yesterday, a very strong reasoning for playing it. How do you see the Seismitoad matchup? I know you beat a few of them yesterday. Do you think, what would you kind of put it as a percentage? Is it a decent matchup for you?
I actually say it's 60-40 their favour, but the 40% is actually still quite high. It all just comes down, a lot of it does come down to coin flips.
Yeah.
I think Super Scoop Up, because you just hit a Seismitoad if you can't hit the Shaman, and then they have to try and get it back up. Otherwise, it's going to get knocked out.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. And Ollie, were you prepared for playing against a fighting bat state? Was that something you were thinking coming into the tournament you might end up playing against?
No, I didn't expect it. I was just preparing for Mirror and Toad and Mirror, Rayquaza and Groudon. Yeah.
Which was, apart from maybe Trevor, and that pretty much was the expected meta. And that was basically how it turned out. If we look at the decks, they were the 4 kind of dominant decks. We saw a Virgin in Top Cut, we saw Michael's deck, but a few of them. So, how do you view the matchup? Do you think it's an inherently favourable matchup for Toad?
I wouldn't say so. I was really quite apprehensive coming in because you played several Lysander and just murdering those Shaman because I need the Shaman to set up.
Indeed.
And so that means I'm going to need to hit scoop ups to scoop them up, and I play Jirachi as well, so that's another issue. But if I'm scooping up Shaman, I'm not scooping up my damaged Seismitoad, so it's difficult. You do need to make key decisions, I guess.
Indeed, I mean, Michael's been able to spread the damage around so well
Yeah.
there that, you know, really kind of pick your poison. All right, you can scoop up and try and heal something,
Yeah.
but you can't scoop up and try and heal everything.
Yeah.
And there were several key turns in the game where you hit that hammer
Yeah.
and then Michael lost a turn of attacking, or you hit that scoop up right before it was about to die.
Yeah,
Or,
on that shaman especially.
and then there's that final turn where you just couldn't draw that Lysandra.
Yeah, I was digging for it. Eventually got it off the tasting on the very last card, but
Indeed, and then Michael scooped just to kind of spite you, so you never actually got to play
I
it.
played the chorus for 9, and I wanted to hit landers and energy, and I whiffed the energy. I hit through 6 item cards. I was like, that's it, I can't do this.
So we are being hurried along here. So congratulations to both of you. Ollie, do you know what you're playing in top 4?
I don't know who's won. I don't even know who I'm playing. So
Fair enough. Well, hopefully we shall see. We're not going to be streaming a top 4 game from Masters. Don't worry, we'll still be here. And I hope to see you again in the final. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Cheers. Thanks. Thank you.
Now we're going to take a quick break now. We are going to be back very shortly. We are going to be showing you the Juniors final from UK Nationals, the Seniors final from UK Nationals, and finally the Masters final. And I'm going to bring on a couple of other guest commentators to help us out. If you want to get in touch with me, you can tweet me at TheWossy, TheWossy. And if I get any interesting tweets, we will share them as we go along. So we're going to pop out for a couple minutes now. We will be back with the Juniors final fairly shortly.